OsteoStrong was brought to me by a patient of mine, and she'd been a patient of mine for several years, and I had kind of watched her body kind of metamorphosis happen. She was really broken when I met her, and during this quest for health that she was on, I watched her body just kind of transform from not only being not broken anymore, but looking younger and being more, seemed like having more vitality. So I asked her many times, what are you doing? What are you doing? So she would always kind of share with me what she was doing, and she would always do things down to like the cellular level. She would really break things down in a manner in which most people just don't do. And I was always intrigued by what she would tell me. Well, one day she comes in and she asked me, Doc, can you check out something for me? I'm interested in bringing something to town. It's called OsteoStrong. I'd like you to take a look at it. So I looked at it like I do many things that people will ask me to look at, and it's always usually something that is not very helpful, but I've looked at every cream and back brace that anybody's ever asked me to look at. When she asked me to look at OsteoStrong, I watched a few videos and became kind of intrigued. I was intrigued by it mainly because it's rooted in science and technology. That kind of jives with my mind. So I became more fascinated the more I watched it. So the doctor who invented it was doing a talk in Santa Monica, OsteoStrong, and so we all drove down to listen to his talk. Well, after his talk was over, I had a bunch more questions about him, but it just made perfect sense to how he described it. So I had a bunch of questions because I had patients with degenerative disc disease and hardware in their body and scoliosis and a lot of conditions that I was asking questions about. And afterwards, I was just blown away by the answers. I thought, this sounds perfect. So I walk over to seek out the gentleman who owned the OsteoStrong at that location in Santa Monica. And I asked him, I said, what's your story with this place? And he tells me that, he goes, well, I was a competitive runner, and then I had to give up running because I had bad knees. And I said, okay, that made sense. He goes, so immediately I took up competitive cycling to fill that void. He goes, and I was an avid golfer, and I loved to golf, but my knees would hurt so much that I gave it up. I hated riding the cart. So he said, after using OsteoStrong for a year, I'm back to competitive running. And I was like, back to competitive running? Like, okay, I knew it strengthened bones. I knew it strengthened muscles, but he said it also strengthened connective tissues, make it more dense, made it stronger. So he was able to go back to running. That kind of blew me away. So I have a kid, and he's young at the time, and he and I were going out running, and when I would get done, my knees were killing me. I knew I was supposed to have surgery. I had an MRI that said I had a meniscus injury in my knee, and so every time I'd play catch with my son, my knees would ache. Well, you know, I want to be a good dad, and I want to play catch with my son, so we're running and playing, we're planning and throwing the ball. He's throwing him over my head, but I'm telling him, you go get it. You go get it, because my knees are going to hurt tomorrow if I run and get it. So I start using OsteoStrong when this gentleman told me that it helped his knees. So I start using OsteoStrong for 1 month. It wasn't in my town. I had to drive 45 minutes there and back to use it. My wife and I drove up once a week for 1 month. And after the end of that 1 month, to make the long story short, I was out running with my son. Running, jumping, had no problem with my knees anymore. It really gave me my life back to be able to run out and do the things with my son I wanted to be able to do. I mean, not to sound dramatic, but that was life-changing for me. And so when I recognized what it had the possibility of doing, not only was I going to be willing to refer people to her, I said I had to be part of it. And so when I came to them, I asked them if I could be a partner, and they said I could, and that's how I became have a financial commitment to having an OsteoStrong.